So first, I would like to thank you for inviting me to talk in the forum, and I would like also to say how much I'm impressed and I respect the Ukrainian people who suffer so much and so deeply currently by the war, but remain so committed as you are today to keep thinking to the big challenges and the urgency of sustainability, and to keep thinking to the future of the development of the cities. So thank you for that. So now I will share my presentation. I will talk about our approach and the projects making with the value of the existing. So make with already there is about the value of the existing. Make with the already there is with people, with nature, with climate, with buildings, with infrastructures, with economy, intelligence, precision, is to consider each existing place as a resource and a positive value, and not seeing only defaults or only problems, which systematically leads to destroy and to replace. The existing offers already enough material, enough buildings, enough networks, roads, and so on. Reusing it in the best way allows to reduce drastically the need of using new materials to build and the need of always taking new territories to build. In this approach, rather than demolishing or replacing or modifying strongly, we prefer to the strategy of transformation. Make with, transform, reuse. This is for us a fundamental pillar of the sustainable approach. Most of what exists still has a lifespan that can be prolonged, updated, upgraded with accuracy and precision to last still a much longer time. Transformation means taking with you the values of the existing and its strengths, and to make them the driving force of a new project. In this approach, we prefer to add, to join, to span existing structure, to superimpose structure, spaces and uses, with a principle of losing nothing, and with a resolute goal to reuse 100% of what is already there. So transformation of the existing is definitely an important issue today, and to our opinion, the only sustainable solution to develop cities better. It's an economy of gesture, of material, of CO2. It's a social economy, an economy in short, which is favorable to the essential. This requires a new approach, which gives importance to accurate observation, to inventory from inside, as close as possible of the situation, with precision and meticulously. This means understanding, looking to the existing with a positive approach to reveal the values and to exalt the qualities. So we can say that today the existing situations are the new materials of the projects. So making with the existing is a general approach, an attitude that we have developed since the beginning of our practice. It's a preliminary in all of our projects. Making with nature, with trees, with soils, with flower, animals, with everything there. That was the topic of this project, a house on the seaside in a pine trees forest. And here, instead of cutting trees, making a clearing to build, we prefer to build a construction that takes care of all the trees and is built around the trees. And that makes it merging between nature and the construction. Here, the cost, the price of the land, the price of nature is much more important than the price of the construction of the architecture itself. Making with the value of the place, it's first to observe which are the qualities of already there. This little square in the city of Bordeaux was part of a large program of embellishment of the squares of the city that the city launched in 1996. So we were involved in this little square that we visited a couple of times at different moments in the day, in the week, on the weekend, and so on. And we had 4 months to propose transformation or renovation of the kind of embellishment of the place. And 4 months later, we came back and we defined the qualities that we have observed and that we have listed for this square. And we say that as a project of embellishment, because we found the place was already beautiful, our project was to do nothing. Make with abandoned buildings, to reuse, to re-give life, to invent new uses. That was also the purpose of the Palais de Tokyo in Paris, a former museum abandoned in the early 90s, and that we were involved in the project, not a project of renovation, but a temporary project of installation of contemporary art center for the young creation. And what is interesting in this place is that, in fact, we over 20 years, we had to work on series on temporary projects that every time finally is very successful, because the goal of the project was not to renovate, to refurbish in a conventional way, but just to repair what was broken and open the doors on all the surface so that the artist and public could again do something and come inside this place. That was also the purpose of the brief for this competition for a new contemporary, regional contemporary art center in the north of France. And the brief was asking that this building, which was a former industrial place, where in the middle of a shipyard where they were building very big boats. Dunkirk is on the North Sea, and there was a big harbor. And we were asked to make inside this contemporary art center on the surface of 7,000 square meters. But when we entered this place, we saw that this was a big void and very interesting to make exhibition. And instead of filling the existing, we prefer to build a new building in the same budget, but with totally prepared and totally good conditions to conserve contemporary art with the climatic conditions requested for the art pieces. In Zurich, that was also the topic of the competition, to take this building, which was a former factory, transformed years ago after the demolition of all the big factories around, and the replacement by a new master plan with new construction for housing, offices. But just this little place was remaining and has been transformed years ago into a public place for concerts, events, with a large capacity of attendance, and which is today a very popular place in Zurich and very active for music and for events. So the brief was based on the demolition of this factory and the replacement, except the yellow building, and the replacement by a new construction to make new concert place, but also to increase the density and to build 150 or 60 new housing. So instead of the demolition, we propose to conserve the existing and to operate densification by the superposition of new buildings that were built either at the edge of the construction or on the place which was not so much in use, so that the densification could be made without disturbing the current activity which was kept inside. So at the end, the concert hall was conserved, and the new apartments, 165, were built. So which means an extension of 11,000 square meters for the new construction without losing or replacing the 7,000 square meters of the existing. So reuse the existing that can be still used, no demolition, addition, accumulation, superposition to build on top these new places for the housing. And at the end, this is this new system, which is not the topic of replacing one typology by another typology, but a mix of situation and existing situation, which is very convenient, with a very valuable, which is kept on the place and replaced, and not replaced, but completed by a new construction, carefully built on top. So densification, optimization of the city ground without wasting the existing, still in use and in good state, with no loss of quality nor usage. And the most important topic that we are working on this issue of making with existing is about the transformation of the modern housing blocks that we have a lot in the peripheries of our city, not only in France, but probably all over the world. These housing blocks built around 60s, 70s, and the transformation is interesting to upgrade quality, to extend the living space, to do more with less, with and for the inhabitants. This is this kind of neighborhood that is very, very usual in the peripheries of the city. And we especially studied this topic since more than 20 years, when in France the government decided a large program of renovation, which was based on the demolition and rebuilding of more than 200,000 apartments of this period, to replace them by new housing. So these places at the time of their construction were proposing, it was the utopia of a new way of life in the 60s at the time of their construction, but step by step, because the promise was not achieved totally, was not the same facilities of equipment, the same facilities of transport that in the city center. So step by step, these places has been transformed, and the middle class is left, and today these places are most often rejected and most often considered as a problem more than an opportunity. So together with a friend, the architect Frédéric Druot, we in 2000 we decided to study this issue, and to see, in order to see the alternative to the demolition that we found really a mistake, because all these buildings, they have still a span of life. They are not at the end of their life, and it's just an issue of obsolescence and an issue of reconnecting and re-giving the better conditions in those neighborhoods. So this is the very sad situation that we saw rather often in France. Today it's a little less, but demolition of existing blocks. And in our research that we did, we studied a number of places which were in the program of transformation. And finally, we arrived to the conclusion that compared to the program of demolition and reconstruction, with a cost of 165,000 euros per dwelling, we could operate a very interesting and good transformation for 1/3 of the budget per dwelling. So we produced at the time this research that we named plus, and it was about finding the values of this existing place and finding solutions to transform instead of demolishing and replacing, which is dramatical for most of the inhabitants living there, because they know that probably their building is not in the best architecture or in the best condition, but it's a place where they are living, and they are really attached to it. So we did this research with in mind the principle of probably as much as radical as in the opposite way. The demolition is also a radical action, and we say it as a statement: never demolish, never subtract, remove or replace, always reuse, transform, give new life with and for the inhabitants. So, and through simple operations like this is the existing with very little windows, no outdoor space, just opening a little more and giving an outdoor space could transform radically the situation and give a new life to these places. So after these studies, quite a long time ago, because we had the opportunity to discuss with the ministry, the governments, but they were not so much interested in changing the policy. But we could make a number of projects. This one is a tower in Paris. That was the situation of the tower. This 96 apartments, already renovated in early 80s, recladded by these pink panels to make an outdoor insulation. And at the time, they really transformed the building, which was previously a very interesting architecture with loggias, with a ground floor elevated, with communal space in the ground floor. But of course, with the defaults, technical defaults of the 60s construction, no insulation, no solar protection. So that was, but we considered that all these different problems could be solved with a careful study, and that was stupid to demolish because there was such technical problems. So we proposed to, it was a competition, and we proposed to transform the building without changing the shape, because for us it's not really a problem that it's a tower or a block. Or what is important is the quality of the apartments, the life inside. And here inside, we could consider that it has been degraded after the first transformation because of these very narrow windows. They closed all the loggias. So we proposed to make a transformation from inside, starting from the value of the existing, the quality of the living space, but also to try to improve what was missing. And we proposed to do this transformation without emptying the building. It means with all inhabitants that wanted to stay during the project and during the works of transformation. So on this basis, we won the competition, and beside developing the project, we did over 6 months an important work of meeting all inhabitants, explaining the project, discussing of the different situations. And through this discussion, we could observe that for something like 40% of the inhabitants inside, they were not at the right place. Either because it was old people living in a very large apartment, because now they were just 2 persons, but they didn't want to leave the building because they wanted to stay in this neighborhood, or at the opposite, young families with 1 or 2 children in a 1-bedroom apartment. So we proposed to the owner, it's social housing, all rented. We proposed to make this work of trying to replace families inside according to their needs. And finally, we arrived to this new geography of families, every family having the right space according to the size of the family. So the project was starting from this existing, this is a basic level with 8 apartments by level. So we proposed an extension all around to make a kind of winter garden plus a balcony that would allow to give again the possibility of more natural light, of going inside, but also the winter garden was an opportunity to find a solution for the thermal improvement and the thermal efficiency, energy efficiency, without going to this outdoor cladding, which is not very sustainable because after a few years it's already damaged. So here you see in blue is the external addition of winter gardens, and in green this is additional rooms to create some type of housing with 3 bedrooms, which were not existing in the building. So the process, because we proposed to do it in occupied site, it was very important to think very carefully at the very beginning to the process of extension. So we avoided big works inside because it would not be possible with people inside to, for example, to break walls or to open a concrete floor. So we just proceeded by extension, and this extension was modular, prefabricated on the external side and just brought on the side. And we could transform like this situation where you see the former facade of the building and the second one, which was made in the 80s when they did the insulation. And this was the transformation of this facade and the addition of the winter garden. So the discussion with the inhabitants continued with the owner, and there was a kind of association of the inhabitants that discussed the condition, and especially the rents after the works. And finally, they arrived to the point that the increase of the rent was very, very little and remained social housing level, so that every inhabitant could stay and that apartments remained affordable. So the transformation from this existing, the process of extension, again without emptying the block, and the final situation. So sometime later, we had this opportunity on a bigger scale in the city of Bordeaux, in a big neighborhood of 4,000 dwellings, social housing dwellings. And this the project was about these 3 blocks of 530 dwellings. It's a very specific part in the city of Bordeaux, which is very close to the city center, but very prominent because the city of Bordeaux is a very low stone town, and this block. But today it's rather well integrated in the city with all the transport, and it's a rather good place to stay. So this was a situation when we worked on the competition, and again we proposed to start thinking from the point of view of the interior space and not from the outside. And it's very important not to stay outside when working on such a situation. Staying outside means judging the place ugly, or judging that there is absolutely no value. So what is important is to go inside and to visit. We visited all apartments, and we could see that the value was inside. The value has been given by all the inhabitants who are living there. So it changes radically the approach and the way the transformation could be made. So some existing situation where you see the diversity and the care that families take in decorating or living in their space. So for us, it was very important to take care to it and to solve the technical problems. And the most important is today the better energy efficiency. Rather low, very low energy consumption. And again, we proceeded by again, we proposed to do it without empty the building with 525 families. Only 3 to 4 apartments were empty, and we proposed to make this extension of 4 meters in front, composed by winter garden plus the balcony, and to transform every window into a door, so that from all the rooms, bedrooms, kitchen, the living, it could be possible afterwards to go into the winter garden like a house in a garden. So that after works, it was giving this situation of this extension. Inside, a number of works were proposed, like renovating all bathroom, renovating the electricity, but also in the communal space, changing the elevators, creating a new elevators to increase the facility of inside, and also some fire security interventions, like closing the fire exit stairs, and here the extension of winter gardens. So on part of here, it's a little part of the big block, 1/5. So this is the intervention of this extension in front. And this proposal was applied to all buildings at all the levels, to give every apartment the same conditions. So the methodology of construction is also very important, to think a lot in advance, to make sure that everything will be possible and there will be no risk during the construction works for the inhabitants. Then we did a kind of prototype, a show flat, to show the inhabitants what it will be. And it became a place of the project, and for exhibition, for meetings of the people, for also make all the presentations, because for such a big community, the law imposed that the community should vote for the project if they agree or if they don't agree before any beginning. And afterwards, the owner, the social housing company of the city of Bordeaux, did also all these things to help every inhabitant. It's a guide for the tenants where they find all informations, and also there was all along the construction time 3 persons dedicated to just to care to inhabitants about their needs, their questions. 1 person from the owner, 1 person from the architect's team, and 1 person from the contractor that was every day dealing with the questions of the inhabitants. So that was this little guide, so that the inhabitants could be involved every day. And then we started the process of the construction, first the foundation, and then the process of bringing the extensions and the final result afterwards. So just a little in detail, you see here the foundations that were to self-support the construction, and then the process of extension. Here it's outside, so until now there is no disturbance, and then we started opening the windows, and the process of changing the facade. The commitment was 2 days. In order to keep acceptable for the inhabitants. And afterwards, a few 2-3 weeks later, that was possible to open to inhabitants, so that they could take the advantage of using the winter garden. So all this, the process of construction with the inhabitants inside, so taking care, finishes around the windows, the glass, the doors open, and then comes the time of appropriation by the inhabitants. So I would just conclude in showing this few images and just one slide with little numbers just to show the economy of transformation and what is the benefit of it. First, it's a benefit of radical transformation, but without breaking anything, without disturbing too much the inhabitants, and keeping them the possibility of staying in their neighborhood. So there's some additional houses on the roof to take advantage of the flat roofs and to make some we did eight additional bigger houses with typologies of 3 to 4 bedrooms. And the final project, which is now the place where everybody would like to come to live. And just a few numbers to summarize the interest of the transformation. 100% of the existing was conserved, and only 20% with a very heavy renovation. We added through winter gardens, balconies, but also some interior space, plus 53% of surface. What is interesting is in just doing this extension, I mean, an extra space for the use, and without any sophisticated technology, we could cut by 3 the primary energy consumption, and it became a low energy building. The carbon footprint compared to the demolition and rebuild is divided by 2. The building was occupied 100% during the construction, no move of inhabitants. 0% increase of rent plus charging that remain the same after the construction works. And the cost net of the construction per dwelling for this transformation was 52,000, which means about 1/3 of the estimated cost for demolition and rebuild. And this was funded by the social housing company 80% and 20% only by public subsidies. So it's very important to think that finally every building, every dwelling can be transformed. Every plot can be increased for a sustainable and qualitative densification for the benefit of living space, uses, and inhabitants. And this we have in the city, if we observe, if we do very careful inventories, we have a huge amount of situations like this where we can operate at the same time a transformation, but also a differentiated densification. So the transformation of existing housing is clearly the opportunity to upgrade massively the quality of all housing with less money and in a more sustainable way. It makes it possible to be more generous, to give more space to each inhabitant, to produce good and affordable living conditions, which are no longer determined by the economic, regulatory, or normative minimum, because the minimum is always today is a rule in the city, building the minimum, but by maximum generosity and sustainability. So thank you very much. It's just this very little film, which of 2 minutes that just show the life of one lady living there during the construction, but
c'était une chose qu'ils avaient fait pour faire du cinéma. C'est ça pendant longtemps. Mais pour l'expliquer, dire ce que c'est, je ne peux pas. Mais c'est dans ma tête qui se passe. On ne s'entend pas que ça finisse comme ça. Je vois comme ça, je vois une énorme chose très bien faite. C'est mes yeux, voilà, finalement. C'est avec ça que je vis maintenant. Moi, je vis avec mon copain Lacaton. Vous connaissez Lacaton? Je suis à l'ascenseur, j'ai trouvé des gens, et je le vois, il fait chaud, il fait froid, il va faire mauvais. Et c'est toujours mon compagnon de route. Il ne me suit pas trop. Et puis après, ça continue, et je parle de mon balcon. Je peux faire le balcon que l'appartement. C'est normal. C'est une autre vie. Là, je suis dehors, je sors à l'autre balcon, le petit, je suis dehors à l'extérieur, je vois tout le monde, je regarde les gens, c'est comme si je suis dehors, à la rue.
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lacaton. It's inspiring lecture, indeed. A lot of recipes and a lot of ideas. And for instance, we have in all the Ukrainian cities the big stock of housing from 70s and 80s. Of course, it's something that is very urgent for us to do, the transformation you did with your projects. I also wanted to describe you the room we are sitting here. It's a revitalized building, and we are Lviv Urban Forum. It's an auditoria of 700 people who was at your lecture. And now, if we have a possibility, please, we would like to have a short session of questions, 2-3 questions from auditoria. Okay. Колеги,
colleagues, whoever is the first one to raise their hand will get a chance, a unique opportunity to ask their question. So raise your hands, but be brief in your questions, and Ms. Lacaton will hear your questions in simultaneous interpretation. Who is ready? Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you, but we cannot see you. I'm here. Yes, I can see you now. Greetings. I was really surprised by the last video clip, like this extended balcony that sort of unites people. I have the following question. Did you consider an opposite outcome? So maybe it will create some discomfort for people who are not very sociable. Maybe they don't really want to interact with their neighbors. They don't really want to see their neighbors. And so potentially they could respond negatively to this innovation or this transformation. Thank you.
I don't know really any situation where the people were not happy to get this extra space and this extra balcony, because it changes so much a situation where you are enclosed in a closed very closed apartment, and suddenly you have openings, and you can arrange a kind of little garden around in front with a balcony. So, and that was also the question that was asked when we did the discussion with, nobody was forced to stay. And if some families would have, for example, expressed no interest for it, I'm sure that the owner would have proposed another apartment somewhere else, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen in both cases. Nobody asked to leave when they knew the project, and so it's clear that probably not all the winter gardens are used in the best way. But there is also the possibilities as the next tenant would use it in the best way. So for us, it's important to propose this generosity, to propose the best conditions. If the inhabitants don't want to use it, probably it's not a big problem. And I remind that they don't pay for it. Because it's a rented apartment, so they have it for the same rent or the very few euros more than before. So it's a decision of the owner to improve the building in that way, because I remind that it's also a way to reach the requirements of energy saving, of sustainable building, low energy building in a different way than making just insulation or something else. But I would say that the feedback that we have from all this project is always a good feedback.
Thank you. I would like to use the opportunity also to give my question, and this will be before you. We had a lecture of Carsten Poulsen from Denmark, talking about traditional European city and how to build a city for people. And he underlines that there is this pattern of blocks of semi-public spaces inside the blocks, so that there are public spaces of streets and squares, and there are semi-public spaces inside the courtyards. Of course, if you talk about this stock of 70s and 80s, not always we have this opportunity to divide and to structure the spaces. And it's in the most of the cases built due to the modernist approach of setting buildings in a general space which is not structured well. So what is your vision? How important is to work with that? Also renovating the housing from 70s and 80s, somehow try to implement this traditional division into some spatial structure.
I think it's a very good, it's a very interesting issue, because in fact, there are different typologies in the city. You have the typology of all the neighborhoods with houses or little blocks with interior squares, and in the case of the modern developments, it's very different because it was not based on the same master plan. But it's not a reason to say that it's worse, or that is because we know that we can improve the situation. Especially what we can improve is the way these buildings are settled on ground, because it was probably a lack of care at the moment of the building, that the building was built, but all around it's kind of empty land with not really a quality of the with car parkings, but no quality as a communal space. But there is a possibility of also mixing typologies, because this urban planning of the 60s finally offers a lot of empty ground, because the density of ground is very low. So for us, it's and we studied the number of projects, but that were never built, because it's not easy to convince about that we could also integrate these big blocks into lower densification. Using we did that for one building, and that's very successful. We used the car parking, which are which are too many around these buildings, to create low blocks of 2-3 levels that integrate these high blocks in a new density. And then you have this opportunity to recreate or to regenerate the ground and the public square. So for us, it's again, it could be solved by a process of discerned densification around these places.
Thank you. Можливо, останнє питання. Я бачу руку дівчини в
And the last question, I can see a raised hand from this lady in the left part of the room.
Thanks a lot. I have a follow-up question about reconstruction of a heritage of 70s and 80s, and the question is, I think that for some Ukrainians this heritage might be considered invasive because it in some way was imposed by the Soviet Union to Ukraine in a sort of colonial way, and some people find it traumatic to think of it as something that belongs to them. And my question is, how do you communicate this idea of importance of preserving every ecosystem in terms of architecture, and is it possible to change or reappropriate the narrative through the reconstruction? Thanks a lot.
So I understand what you mean, and it's something that is very difficult to find convincing arguments. But anyway, my feeling is that it's possible to detach the history of the space, of the buildings. And in the transformation of the building, you can bring them in another period. And it's important to emphasize the value of probably not the historical value, but the value in terms of saving what we have, in terms of less consumption, in terms of and I'm sure that if you explain that finally, is it a good thing to demolish constructions that probably might be improved or transformed, but that are already there and that represent probably 70 or 80% of the new of a new place, a new project? Or is it better to crash all of this and to make a big waste and replace them by new housing that probably would not be made much better? So I would say that I've no solution, because we have not been really confronted to what you explain, and I can perfectly understand what it means. But I would say that probably that through discussions, through explanation, probably that would be possible to overcome the memory of it, but just to place these buildings into an issue of how can we live today in the better conditions, in sustainable conditions, and to improve the quality of living without spending too much. So I would say that probably for me, I would try to make to go to this angle of view, but of course I've never been confronted to this kind of objection or opposition.
And Lacaton, thank you very much for your time, for your energy, for your ideas.
Thanks for the invitation. Thank you very much, and I wish you a nice forum.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.